The film begins with a spaceship headed to a very distant planet called Homestead. On board are 258 crew members and 5,000 passengers who are meant to live on Homestead. They are all asleep in highly advanced devices that keep them in a state of hibernation because the ship is supposed to reach the planet in another 90 years. This means the hibernation stage keeps them young, and they don't age as long as they are asleep. At this time, a group of meteors hits the ship and causes a technical malfunction, so the ship's computer system activates and wakes up a mechanical engineer named Jim from his hibernation state so he can fix the problem. Jim wakes up exhausted and finds a program appearing to him in the form of a woman who welcomes him and tells him to go to his room immediately to rest because the hibernation state has left him physically exhausted. Jim agrees and goes to his room. He thinks the ship is about to arrive at Homestead. After resting, he gets dressed and goes to the room where the passengers are supposed to gather. He notices the room is completely empty and no other passengers have woken up. He starts asking the female form program why he is the only one who woke up from hibernation, but she says she doesn't know the reason. At that moment, Jim feels something is wrong, so he goes to the control room and starts talking to the program responsible for the spaceship's navigation. He asks how long until they reach Homestead, and the program tells him they still have 90 years to go. He learns they left Earth 30 years ago and have been asleep in complete hibernation all that time. Jim is devastated because he will spend his entire life on the ship and unfortunately die before reaching the planet. He then goes to record an audio message to the technology company that built the spaceship, asking them to help him return to the hibernation device because he doesn't know how to operate it. But after finishing the message, the auto reply device tells him the message will take 19 years to send, and he will receive a reply from the company in 55 years. Jim is very disappointed and goes to the bar on the ship. There, he sees someone working there and goes to talk to him, but he is surprised to find it's not a human. He learns this robot's name is Arthur. Arthur offers him a drink. Jim asks him if he knows any way to activate the hibernation device, but Arthur says he doesn't have any information about it. So, Jim is forced to return to his room and sleep. The next day, he wakes up and goes to his hibernation device. He tries to adjust its wires, hoping he can activate it, but he ultimately fails because only the ship's crew has the authority to operate the device. He then goes to the crew's room and tries to break in, hoping the door will open and someone from the crew will wake up. Unfortunately, he can't because the door is made of very strong metal. Many months pass, and Jim sadly can't open the room at all until he finally gives up completely. He goes to talk to the robot Arthur and tells him he is very sad because he will spend his entire life alone on the ship until he dies. Arthur consoles him and says that all creatures die anyway and advises him to accept reality and enjoy the time he has left. Jim is convinced by his words and goes to play basketball and electronic dance games. A full year passes, and every day he repeats his routine the same way until he becomes very bored and feels lonely.
He goes to the spacesuit room, puts one on, and exits the ship to look at the stars. At that moment, he feels extremely lonely and starts crying. He returns to the ship and thinks about ending his life by pressing the button that opens the airlock to space, but he gets scared and runs away terrified until he reaches the room with the passengers' hibernation devices. There, he sees a woman named Aurora and becomes fascinated by her introductory videos, learning that she is a famous novelist. He stays by her device and at that moment tampers with Aurora's device and watches as she wakes up in front of him. He runs away so she won't know he woke her up. Later, he goes to talk to her and tells her there was a malfunction on the ship and he woke her up, and surely the same thing happened to her. He informs her that the ship unfortunately still has 89 years to go before reaching Homestead, and that they will die before reaching the planet. Aurora is very frightened and runs to the hibernation room to return to her device, but Jim tells her there is unfortunately no way they can return to hibernation. The only solution is to wake up someone from the crew, because they are the only ones who know how to operate the device, but unfortunately he doesn't know how to open their room. Aurora gets angry and goes to her room to sleep. Jim goes to the bar feeling very guilty about what he did, talks to Arthur, and asks him not to tell Aurora that he woke her up until he confesses the truth at the right time. The next day, he sits down to have breakfast with her. Aurora asks if they could build a hibernation device themselves. Jim tells her he's been on the ship for a year and tried everything to return to hibernation, but it's no use because the company that made the devices didn't mention anything about how to build them. He lets her give up, and she goes to talk to the ship's auto-reply device, asking if there's any way to build hibernation devices, but the device says that information is confidential. After a while, she goes to talk to Jim and starts asking him why he left Earth and traveled to a strange planet, knowing that if he returned to Earth again, 180 years or more would have passed, meaning he wouldn't see any of his family because they would be dead. Jim tells her he was an orphan and had no one anyway. Then they walk together, and Aurora tells him she traveled to write a novel, and thus would be the first writer to travel to a new planet. Later, Jim takes her to the game room, and they play together until they go to the bar. Aurora gets tired and returns to her room, only to find Jim sent her a robot with a note saying he wants to have dinner with her. Aurora agrees, and they go to dinner together. She starts telling him about her life on Earth and her father. Jim focuses on her words, and it's clear from his looks that he loves her very much. Afterward, they put on spacesuits and go out to space to look at the stars. For the first time, Aurora is very happy and admires him. The next day, they have breakfast together and confess their love for each other. They decide to be in a relationship and live their lives together on the ship. After a year, Aurora's birthday comes and Jim brings her a cake. They celebrate together, but when he goes to the bar and leaves her alone, he takes out a ring to surprise her and propose. At that moment, the robot Arthur tells Aurora that Jim was very infatuated with her and that he was the one who woke her up while she was in hibernation. Aurora is shocked and tells Jim to stay away from her and not talk to him again. She then goes to her room and starts breaking everything in sight, thinking about how to get revenge on him for what he did. At night, she goes to his room and starts hitting him, then grabs an iron rod, wanting to finish him, but she controls her nerves, throws the rod, and leaves. Later, Jim sits alone in the room and notices a glitch appearing on the ship's computer, revealing that the ship actually has many malfunctions due to the meteor impacts. One day, Aurora comes out of her room and finds that Jim planted a tree for her as a kind of apology, knowing she loves trees. She goes to the dining room to have breakfast, but suddenly she and Jim hear the voice of the ship's captain speaking over the microphone, asking who planted a tree on his ship. They go to meet him and learn his name is Captain Gus. They ask him how long until they reach Homestead, and he says 88 years. He then learns that a malfunction on the ship caused them to wake from hibernation, and he tells them the same thing happened to him. He takes them to the crew room they couldn't open and tries to find out the cause of the ship's malfunction. He is surprised to find the ship has many serious malfunctions, and it will be difficult to fix them all. He decides to take a tour of the ship and check all the hibernation devices, hoping to find a way to solve the malfunctions. When he goes to Aurora's hibernation device, he finds out Jim tampered with it and woke her up. Jim admits he did it and tells him he spent a year alone on the ship and is very regretful. Gus forgives him and returns to the engine room. There, Aurora comes to talk to him and says Jim ruined her life. Captain Gus tells her she has the right to be upset, but Jim did what he did out of desperation. During their conversation, Gus becomes very tired and says he needs to rest a bit and will return later to examine the ship's malfunctions. Aurora goes to the swimming pool, and suddenly another malfunction occurs on the ship, causing gravity to fail. At that time, Jim is asleep in his room and starts floating in the air. Aurora, meanwhile, can't get out of the water, but luckily gravity returns and she quickly exits the pool. Jim goes to check on her, and Captain Gus wakes up and they go to the large control room.
There, they discover the ship has 16 malfunctions, and these malfunctions are increasing every day. At this rate, the ship will be destroyed within a year and won't reach Homestead. He takes them to the engine room and says they need to inspect it quickly, so if they find a broken engine, they can fix it and restore the ship. But at that moment, Captain Gus loses consciousness and is taken to the medical room, where they discover he has cancer and will die within days. He is very tired and returns to his seat to rest. Suddenly, unfortunately, another malfunction occurs on the ship. They go looking for Gus and find him sitting alone. He tells them to take care of each other and must cooperate to fix the ship's malfunction. Then he gives his wristband to Jim, saying it will allow him to enter any room on the ship. Before he finishes his words, unfortunately, he dies. The malfunctions on the ship increase even more. They go to the engine room and start looking for the malfunction. Suddenly, a room door opens and air starts sucking Aurora out. Jim tries to save her and quickly closes the door. At that moment, they discover that when meteors hit the ship, they caused holes in it, which explains the air entering the ship. Jim is surprised to find many holes in the ship, which caused the main engine and the computer controlling the ship's navigation to malfunction. Jim decides to fix the engine and finds that the door to the reactor generating power is locked. Now he must go himself to cool the reactor, because its heat will destroy the entire ship. Aurora is worried because this is very dangerous for him. Jim puts on his spacesuit, and before leaving the ship, Aurora begs him not to die because she can't live on the ship without him. He goes to open the reactor door, and all the heat exits the ship, causing it to function again. Unfortunately, this heat hits Jim and engulfs him. To make matters worse, his oxygen tube breaks and he starts suffocating until he dies. Aurora puts on a spacesuit and goes to retrieve him, bringing him back to the ship. There, she quickly puts him in a resuscitation device, and luckily, he revives. After a while, Jim checks the ship's systems and finds they are back to normal and not malfunctioning. He tells Aurora he discovered on the medical device that it has a hibernation setting, meaning if someone activates it, they will sleep again for 88 years and thus reach Homestead. Unfortunately, there is only one device left. He suggests she enter the device so he can correct his mistake, and he will continue his life alone on the ship until he dies. But strangely, Aurora refuses and says she will continue her life with him. When they go to the bar, Jim presents her with a ring and proposes to her. She agrees, and they continue their lives together. After 88 years, the ship finally arrives at Homestead. All the passengers wake up and find that Aurora recorded an audio recording for them, telling them what happened. They discover that they planted many trees on the ship throughout their lives, and that, unfortunately, the two of them died together. The film ends. If you liked the film, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. By the way, I created a second channel called Overdose Films, and I'll leave the link for you in the video description. Go check it out and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.